Crows Club presents B-Side Breakdown.
Hey everyone, welcome to the B-Side Breakdown. My name is Brett Johnson, and I am your host. This is episode 23 of a podcast where I talk with other artists, musicians, and songwriters about a song they've written that's meaningful to them, where we can have a chat and get deep into the why behind it. They also need to be able to give me permission to play the song in its entirety on the episode so you all can hear it, which I'm pretty stoked about. Today I'm going to be talking to Sarah McQuaid, who's a singer-songwriter that hails from Cornwall, England, about her song called Last Song. So let's get into it. Here is Last Song by Sarah McQuaid.
When I was a little girl, tucked in my bed at night, I'd have the door cracked open and I'd watch that thread of light. I'd listen to my mother as she played her old guitar. I'd say, do Froggy went a courting for the next one. She'd say, alright, but now this has to be the last song. Are you still awake? Go to sleep, child. The sun is down, you're safe and sound. The Sandman's on his way. Honey, close your eyes. Time to be quiet now, till you wake up in the morning and start another day. Years have passed, and now I'm trying to learn some sweet old tune. In the hall I've got the light on, so it shines into your room. You're talking to your teddy bears and playing with your dolls. You should have been asleep an hour ago. I'm thinking, is it my mother's voice or mine that I hear asking, are you still awake? Go to sleep, child. The sun is down, you're safe and sound. The Sandman's on his way. Honey, close your eyes. Time to be quiet now, till you wake up in the morning and start another day. Left this world too soon to ever know you. She never got to see your little face. And I wish with all my heart that she'd lived long enough to hold you, long to kiss your cheek and stroke your head and say, are you still awake? Go to sleep. child. The sun is down, you're safe and sound. The Sandman's on his way. Honey, close your eyes. Time to be quiet now. Till you wake up in the morning and start another day. Another day. Froggy went a-courting and he did right. Froggy went a-courting and he did right. Sword and pistol by his side.
All right, and that was Last Song by Sarah McQuaid. We're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and talk with Sarah about the song and to find out more about what she's working on next. Stay with us. All right, and we're back. Let's bring in Sarah to find out more about Last Song and what she's got going on now. Hey, Sarah, thank you so much for taking some time to talk with me today.
Thank you, Brett. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Absolutely, absolutely. I have so many questions for you, just having listened to it and reading the background on the record. But I'd love to kind of hear from your perspective first. Why is it that you wanted to talk about that song specifically?
Well, it's kind of a special song for me. It's one I wrote a long, long time ago, back when my kids were little. And then I decided to reprise it when I made my recent live album, the St Buryan Sessions. And I guess it's a song about, generations and children and parents and everything, which is very much, it's always on my mind, especially since my own kids are college age now, and I've just sent them both back to university. So I'm an empty nester now. So
Mm-hmm.
things like parents and children are even more on my mind than they would have been anyway. It's just been a constant in my life for the past 20 years.
Sure. No, it makes sense. And it's a gorgeous song, and I love the production of it, the way you're singing it, how it was recorded, all of it. It's just got such a beautiful vulnerability to it that really grabbed me. And then when it kind of gets into the next part where it's, oh wow, you're talking about how your mother didn't get to see your grandchild or her grandchild, right? I mean, that's what I grabbed from that. Was I, am I kind of on point with that, or am I way off base?
Yeah. She never got to see the youngest one, and she died 6 months after my first child was born.
Got it.
So neither of them ever knew their grandmother, which is so sad, because
Sure.
my grandmother was a huge part of my life, and I feel so lucky to have had that. And I feel kind of sad for them that they didn't have the same thing. I mean, they did get to meet their grandmother on their father's side,
Mm-hmm.
but they don't see much of her now because she's in Ireland and we're in England. So it's just kind of again, I just feel that I was tremendously lucky to have grown up with my grandmother being a huge part of my life, and being able to, spend whole weekends and whole summers with her. And I feel sort of sad that I couldn't pass that on to the next generation. And I think we all need to remember, if we do have our parents with us, how fortunate we are.
Yes, agreed. And your gratitude around that relationship with your grandmother is wonderful to hear, and it's such a stark reminder for me of my relationship with my grandmother, because that relationship too, similar. She lived, I'm originally from Minneapolis, Minnesota, and she lived up in Lake Park, Minnesota, which is kind of the northwest corner of the state, sort of by Fargo, North Dakota. But so she was a few hours away, but the same idea. Like I got to go up and spend weekends with her, and spend multiple weeks in the summer with her in between school and things like that. But and she passed when I was in my 20s, and looking back on that, yeah, I know friends of mine who never knew their grandparents, right? And it's just one of those. It was such a tremendously important relationship to me too. And I just appreciate the reminder of that.
Oh, thank you. And that's lovely to think of you getting to spend your weekends and big chunks of your summer. Because I remember that was such a big thing for me. I mean, it's funny in hindsight. Uh, when I think of it now, I think of it more from my mother's point of view. And my mother was a single mother, and my grandmother used to come and pick me up from school every Friday afternoon and drive me out to her farm in Indiana. I grew up in Chicago,
Mm-hmm.
and my grandmother would pick me up, drive me out to the farm, and I'd spend the weekend on the farm. And then my mother would drive out on Sunday and pick me up and bring me back to Chicago again. And I thought I was the luckiest kid in the world because I got to spend all my weekends on the farm. And it was only years later, when I was kind of grown up and had little kids, and I thought, wow, my mother got every weekend free.
Yep. Oh, that's funny. No, I hear that. Yeah, my son, he's 33 now, and he lives out in Portland, Oregon. But I'm just thinking of that too, like when, growing up, just right, having that ability to have some free time in there, is pretty amazing.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. No, that's great. And so I'd love to talk about the record this comes from. So this is, am I saying it right? It's the St Buryan Sessions. Is that right?
St Buryan Sessions. Yeah. St Buryan is the nearest village to where I live. I live way down in the far southwest corner of England. I'm between Penzance and Land's End, so quite near to the westernmost point of England,
Uh-huh.
about as close to the USA as you can get
Gotcha.
without leaving the country. So yeah, when lockdown hit back in March of 2020, I was on tour at the time. As I was on tour in Germany,
Mm-hmm.
and we had to dash home before the borders closed. I was 2 weeks into a tour of Germany and the Netherlands, and expecting to be on the road for another 4 weeks, and had to hightail it back to England. And then the sort of realization hit that it was going to be a long time before I was going to go out and be able to do concerts and tours again. And myself and my wonderful manager, Martin Stansbury, who's also my sound engineer, has been for the last 15 years, he and I were talking about, oh gosh, what can we do? What can we do? And I really didn't want to do the whole live streaming thing,
Sure.
because there's just something about even speaking to I'm speaking to a screen.
Right.
I'd much rather have your face in front of
Yep.
me and be talking to a human being. And I really didn't want to get into performing to a screen, but I also knew that I needed, if I was going to maintain contact with people who like my music, I needed some kind of online content that I could put out. And Martin said, well, I'll tell you what, why don't we make that live album we've always wanted to make, but we'll make it without an audience. So we waited until we got to the point where you were allowed to have 6 people in England, the way it was anyway. You were allowed 6 people working in one space together, but no more than that.
Okay.
And it had to be for work,
Sure.
It couldn't be a social gathering. But we were allowed 6 people, and that was just enough to have myself and Martin and a 2-man film crew
Yep.
go into this beautiful church and make a live album. And I didn't have an audience, but because I was performing, in a church with that whole lovely atmosphere around me, and I had Martin and the other 2 guys there, so I was with other human beings. And that was enough for me to be able to actually perform the way I knew I was never going to be able to perform just sitting in front of an iPhone at home. So,
Right.
so yeah, we recorded this whole live album with no audience, and we filmed the whole thing as we were recording it live. And because we didn't have an audience, we were able to do stuff like the guys were able to lay down track in front of me and roll great big cameras back and forth, in front of my face while I was singing, which you couldn't really have done if you were in a concert. So
Sure.
it was kind of the best of both worlds because it captured the live performance, and the whole atmosphere and the magic of the place. But then the whole thing was on video. And what I did through the whole remainder of that year was every time Morgan Lewis, the Cornish filmmaker who was in charge of the video project, it takes ages to edit video, and so he was able to get about one song ready and ready to be put out there every month or two. And so I just kept putting out the songs on the album as individual video premieres on YouTube.
Sure.
And it would be, we'd do the live premiere thing and people would post comments and everything like that. And I'd have a little chat with the people. And that gave me a chance to kind of feel connected with people again, even though I couldn't go out and perform live. And then when I was ready to go out and tour again, I had a new album, and it was a new live album, the St Buryan Sessions. So it was it was one good thing that came out of that whole dark time.
Definitely. No, that's wonderful to hear. That sounds so, yeah. I just visualize that as you described it. And that, right, what a wonderful opportunity to be able to kind of, right, capitalize on an opportunity that otherwise you might not have been able to have, and just to be able to kind of create that whole, not only the live record, but the video as well. So is all that of where can people go find that? I know your music's out on streaming services and Bandcamp and things, but, and as well as, sarahmcquaid.com, but is there a specific spot people should go to find the video as well?
Yeah, you can just go to my YouTube channel.
Okay.
I thought about, putting up, because I'm selling the album, obviously, I thought about, not making all of it available. And I thought, no, you know what? I'm just going to make it all available on my YouTube channel so people can actually go to my YouTube channel and watch the entire album and listen to it. I've put it up as a playlist. And then if they like it, if they didn't buy the album, it would be really nice.
Absolutely.
The album's out on vinyl as well. It's a double vinyl LP on
Nice.
blue vinyl, limited edition, and all that good stuff. But yeah, if you're just curious about it, you can go to my YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/Sarah McQuaid or /Sarah McQuaid, depending on which country you're in, / or stroke, and then you can just watch the entire album with me, with it being filmed as I was recording it live.
Got it. No, that's wonderful. And I look forward to seeing that myself. I've not seen that yet. And so one thing I wanted to ask you, so in the instrumentation of Last Song, to me, my ears perked up because I thought I heard bass. I'm like, oh, is there additional instrumentation here? Is it just you on guitar and vocals? Or
as long as you're listening to the St Buryan Sessions version, it's just me on guitar.
Wild. Okay, cool.
There are two versions of the song out there. There's the version that I recorded on my 2008 album, I Won't Go Home Till Morning. Yep. Oh, my cat is mewing.
Kitty. Yes. You probably hear mine too.
Well, yeah, there's I recorded that song originally way back in 2008 for my album I Won't Go Home Till Morning, and that version of the song does have bass on it. But if you're listening to the last song that's on the St Buryan Sessions, that's the live version, and that's just me and my acoustic guitar.
Oh, cool. I'm gonna have to pay closer attention to that, because right, it's the version you sent me, and in the version that I'm playing for everyone here from the St Buryan Sessions. But I thought, when I was listening to it earlier, I was like, am I hearing additional instrumentation? Didn't know if my mind was playing tricks on me or my ears were, but that's really cool. So I look forward to digging deeper into the record and consuming all the live video. And it's awesome that you have, a double live album on blue vinyl out there. That's so great. So I hope
Yeah.
everybody goes to your website and buys it. I also see that you have some other dates coming up. It looks like you're kind of going on sort of mini tours or segments of tours. I know you have several dates that looks like it starts on Friday
Yeah.
in the UK. And then, so is that all kind of regional to where you are, or is that sort of all over the place? Or is just being in the UK period, is that regional?
I've got a really short 10-day tour. It's hardly even worth calling a tour.
Okay.
Starting this Friday. And that is, it's all around the southern part of England. So it's not exactly regional. It's like, I go right over to the other side,
Sure.
the east side of the country.
Yep.
But I don't go way up north. I just go a little bit north. I go as far as Gloucestershire to the north, and is there a gig in Worcestershire as well? I can't remember. Anyway, it's all in the southern half of England, and it's a really short little tour, and it's kind of a warm up for the rest of the year. I'll be trying out some material that I haven't played live in years and years, and maybe some new material as well. So as I say, this is my start of the year, and then I'll be doing a 5-week tour in the Netherlands and Germany in February and March. And then in April, I'll be heading over to Ireland for a couple of weeks. And then I'll be doing a whole UK-wide tour, including, Wales and the far north of England and so on in May. I've got a couple of festivals over the summer, and then another UK tour in September. And then in October and November, I'll be coming over to your part of the world and doing a USA tour in the months of October and November, and that'll finish out my year.
Oh, wonderful. That's great. I'm glad you're coming over here, because I don't know that I'm going to be able to get over there to see you, but that's wonderful you're coming here, because then I can. So that's wonderful. Do you have those dates? Is everything confirmed? Is it announced yet? Or are the US dates still kind of under wraps?
Oh, the U.S. dates! I've barely started booking that tour. I've only got about 5 gigs confirmed, and I need about 40 to make the tour worthwhile.
Sure.
So I'm still working on that, but I got a little bit of time to get it all filled in.
Yeah, wonderful. Well, I sure look forward to hopefully catching a performance, and it'd be lovely to say hello in person if that's an opportunity when you're here. I look forward to, this is wonderful. I'm glad you're able to kind of pick up sort of where you left off, it sounds like, on touring. Have you toured since COVID then? Since your last tour kind of got cut short? Is this picking back up where you left off, or have you toured already? Have you already been back to Germany and the Netherlands since then?
Last year, 2023, was my first full year of touring. And it was the first year since COVID that I actually got over to the Netherlands and Germany and Denmark as well, and over to the USA as well. I did a US tour last autumn, which was my first time in the US since COVID. So last year was intense. I did over 120 shows last year.
Wow.
So, and in all the country, in Ireland, England, Netherlands, Germany, Denmark, and the USA.
Okay.
Which was fantastic. It was it was so good to be back doing proper touring again, because it's been such a huge part of my life for so long. I mean,
Sure.
ever since 2009 basically was when I started really touring intensively and touring in multiple countries. And I was kind of used to doing that every year, and so it was when I suddenly couldn't do it, I almost felt like a part of myself was missing.
Sure.
I felt like, because it's funny, I was chatting to another musician about this. Have you come across a wonderful songwriter and performer called Zoe Mulford?
No, I have not, but I read about her, how you and her met, I think. Is that
Oh,
right?
no, you're thinking of Zoe Pollock. Sorry.
Oh, my bad. Sorry.
Yeah. No,
Different.
Zoe Mulford is Zoe Pollock is an English singer and songwriter who I've made an album with over here. That's what you're thinking of. But Zoe Mulford is she's a singer and songwriter from Pennsylvania,
Oh,
originally lives in England now, but still tours in both the U.S. But the reason I mention her is that she and I were both playing at a festival just outside Chicago in just at the beginning of September, the Fox Valley Folk Festival outside Chicago, and we were staying in the same hotel as were all of the artists. Pretty much, we're staying in the same hotel, and we got chatting in the hotel restaurant, and we were talking about how when we couldn't perform, how there's this part of you that only really comes out when you're on stage.
hmm.
That's kind of your performance person, and it's almost like there's a different side of you that comes out when you're performing that you just can't get access to when you're off stage. And then when you can't go out and perform, it's like that part of you isn't there, and you just feel like only half a person. And she said she felt the same way, and I was really glad to hear that, because I thought maybe it was just me and maybe there was something wrong with me. But I think she
No.
said that she reckoned there was an element of that with pretty much anyone who's a performer, that you almost have to you know show a slightly different side of yourself when you get up on stage.
Yep.
And and then when you can't do that, you just can't get at that person. I mean, it would be every bit as bad as I couldn't get at my offstage self either.
Sure.
That wouldn't be good either.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it was a really tough time.
Yeah, no, I certainly identify and relate to that. I did a lot of the touring that happened for me happened between 1998 and 2008. And a lot of it was United States, and then in the mid 2000s, it was more kind of globally and doing the multiple country thing, and that was super amazing and really fun. And I've performed so in many different kind of genres and many different capacities, and I hear you. I mean, completely. That there's this other part. Funny, I was talking to someone else recently. When I was younger, I really hated performing. I wanted to get off stage as quickly as I could because it was really uncomfortable. And it was just, for me, I had to work out what is my intention here? What am I doing? If I'm trying to just be on display and that's my motivation, well, then I'm uncomfortable doing that, because why do I want you just to, view me? That's not the point. My point is that once I realized and internalized, for me, there's a significant spiritual component to performing, and the common experience that happens between the performer and the audience there, where it's kind of one experience together, like that to me is really the beautiful part of it. And that's where I access what I hear you talking about, sort of that other part of me that comes out in performing. And having, stopped touring in 2008 myself, primarily, and it's mostly just been kind of ad hoc gigs when I get them with, either old bands that are doing reunion tours or new bands that I'm in, and we're starting some, regional sort of gig thing, or even, tribute bands that I've performed with. It's wonderful to get back on stage and kind of just settle back into that old, it's like, oh, there you are. It's like one of those things where I get to kind of find myself in that space again. And yeah, when COVID happened and all the projects I was working on, right, all stopped. And from a performance perspective, we hardly could even get in the space and practice. It was very, very challenging and very disjointed. And I felt like, right, there's parts of me that I'm missing, that I'm not able to express and explore and continue to kind of fill my spiritual wells with that aspect and component of who I am, And so now that that's passed, it's just wonderful to hear, with your example, that you're able to tour, do 120 gigs last year, and that you got a full tour of, both sides of the ocean happening. And that's amazing. It's just wonderful to hear that you're able to kind of pick it up and keep going.
And I can totally relate to what you're saying about the spiritual element and the kind of magic that happens between artist and performer. That's something I've talked about a few times, actually, in interviews and so on. And it's something I talked about on stage. I remember when I first started performing again after COVID, I cried.
Sure.
Nearly every gig. I cried on stage because I was just so overwhelmed by
Hmm.
that thing of finally getting to share music. It doesn't even matter that it's my music, but to share the
Yep.
experience of music with other people.
Yes. Yeah. Well said. Right. Yeah. It didn't have to be. Oh, I'm no, but I wrote this. It's like this decentralizing of my ego thing. It's like I don't. It doesn't have to be about me at all. It's just that I get to be this sort of vessel to help communicate it and share it with everybody else, and we all get to kind of experience this. Like to me, that's what I love about it.
Yeah, I mean, I sang with the Chicago Children's Choir for many years as a kid, and we toured all over the place.
Oh, sure.
And I still sing in choirs now. I was doing tons of choral music all through the month of December when I was at home. Kind of jumped straight into singing choirs again, and that's really magical too, when you are part of this giant whole, and your voice is just one element in this huge vocal sound.
Yep.
And that's always been, I think even if I couldn't, for some reason, if I couldn't go out and perform solo anymore, I'd still love to sing with choirs. That's just, it's so magical.
That is, yeah, and thank you for that reminder. I can kind of squirrel pretty quickly. It's like, oh, I have this idea, and then I should do this, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait, what am I focusing on? And then I'm spread way too thin, and I have too many things happening, and don't want to continue doing that. But one of the things I've always wanted to do, Katie, is sing and
Sorry.
it's all good. It's my cat does the exact same thing. She sits on my side of my door and sings at me while I'm talking. But I've always wanted to get back into singing in choirs myself. It's something I loved doing as a kid and something I did as a teenager, and kind of always meant to really find that via or avenue again. And by the nature of my life, I've moved around so much over the past, 15 years that I've never really been in one place long enough to dig in long enough to find out, okay, wait. If I'm going to get into a choir, where am I looking for that? So that's just this. Thank you for the reminder, because now I'm going to go look for that and see if I can find one.
Yeah, do. I mean, it's meant to be really good for both your physical and your mental health, singing with choirs. Studies have shown, there's an article in the Guardian, one of the newspapers here
Mhm.
recently, which immediately did the rounds of all the various local choirs
Sure.
around here. Everybody was reposting it and sharing it on Facebook and stuff, that apparently choral singing is just really, really good for you.
Yeah. No, I will take their word for it, because I remember it being a very, just calming and centering and therapeutic experience anyway. And just that also that for me, it's also just a great opportunity to kind of keep practicing also singing with other people on a regular basis, because since COVID, one of my favorite bands, I'm diverting back a long time ago, I was in a band where there was a four-piece band and all four of us sang, and we had a lead singer, but we would do a lot of four-part harmonies. We're super influenced by bands like Queen and things like that, and just wanted to emulate, like, how can we, I mean, we don't have their vocal ranges or their ability necessarily, but let's do us and let's figure out how we can do that. And it was so fun. I mean, singing those harmonies was one of the most fun moments I recall, just being in a practice space and writing with other musicians. But since COVID, and the inability to be in a practice space with others, or not having kind of that dynamic, also I would just imagine regularly practicing and singing in a choir would be really exceptional for keeping my chops up as a vocalist, as well as just really that whole listening component that has to happen when you're singing with others in harmony.
Oh yeah, it's lovely. There's nothing like it. I mean, I sing I sing with my local church choir, and I also sing with a community choir called the Pipers Choir here in Cornwall. And then there's a choir, a kind of an ad hoc choir that gets together every year in Cornwall. We call ourselves the Duchy Singers, and we're mostly all members of different choirs around the county. But
Hmm.
we do a performance of Handel's Messiah for charity
Nice.
every year, and and that's fantastic. I mean, the singers in the singers in the both the church choir and the pipers choir. It's kind of we all enjoy singing together, but there's a whole lot of different levels,
Sure.
of it's not a high they're not high powered choirs, whereas the Duchy Singers is a high powered choir. Everybody in there, can sing at a professional level, basically.
Yep.
And oh man, that is just so amazing when we do that piece. We just do that one piece of music every winter, and it's always packed, and it always raises money for a different charity every year, and it's just a fantastic thing to be able to do.
It sounds fantastic. And any chance that's been recorded and released in some capacity where the proceeds go to charity?
No.
That oh shucks, okay, just thought was hopeful. No, that's wonderful. Wow. Well, so question on your upcoming tour. One thing I want to circle back on with that is, and just kind of the touring you're going to do this year. Is this all solo acoustic, or is this with a band or other instrumentation?
It's all solo, but I play a bunch of different instruments. I
Oh,
play
okay.
an acoustic guitars and keyboard, and or a piano if there is one. I'm always happiest if there's a real piano in the venue.
Yeah.
And I play a little bit of drum as well. I bring a floor tom with me, or a rack tom in the USA, and play a bit of drum as well. So I'm a solo performer,
Okay.
and I like it that way because I think when you're performing solo, you really, really get that connection with an audience where the energy is just all going back and forth between you on stage and the audience in front of you. Whereas if you're with a band, I mean, there's joy in that too, but the energy is kind of it's circulating around on the stage, and the audience are more spectators. Whereas I always feel like when I'm doing the solo gig, the audience are really kind of active participants in some sense. They're not just spectators; they're necessary to the whole thing. I'm useless without them,
Sure.
So yeah, there's something really good about performing solo, which is why I've been performing solo for the last 15 years now, and I tour with my manager and sound engineer, who's he's kind of like a band member who operates from behind the sound desk.
Yep. Sure.
He's an essential part of the process as well, and
Of
was
course.
the whole the St Buryan Sessions was all his idea, and he contributed in a big way to the sound of that, in the sense that he was the one who had the idea of doing it in the church and putting microphones all around the space of the sanctuary, and to really capture the natural acoustic of the building. So one of the reviewers wrote that the St Buryan Sessions, it's kind of a duet between me and the church, which
Nice.
I really liked.
That's nice.
So that was lovely. That was lovely too. But no, I always tour solo.
Got it. And so, uh, having not seen a performance and not knowing how you pull that off solo, is it one instrument at a time, or for example, I've played and toured with other artists where they're a solo performer on stage, but they may be playing an instrument and have some kind of a, not necessarily like the rest of the band backing track, but another sort of instrument or sampling kind of scenario where they can play other sounds while that support what they're doing with their instrument and their voice. Or is it just you're creating it all kind of, I mean, analog, meaning just real time, you and the instruments you're using at the time you're doing it?
Well, we don't use anything pre-recorded, but
Okay.
I do a little bit with live looping,
Okay.
which
Cool.
again Martin controls from the desk end. But like, for example, I do one song that has a delay effect that allows me to basically sing a 3-part round with myself.
Nice.
Where I start singing the song, and then as I'm singing it, Martin starts looping my vocal. Or it's not a loop, it's a delay. He's always telling me,
okay.
It's a loop. It's not a loop, it's a delay. He starts, he uses a tap delay on my vocal so that my voice repeats in time to what I'm singing, which produces the effect of a round or canon. And then there's another song where I actually set up a drum beat and then play along with that.
Okay. Sure.
I play a little bit of drum and he loops that, and then I start playing the guitar again in time for the drum.
Oh, that's great.
That I've just played, but it's all done live. There's nothing pre-recorded.
Nothing pre-recorded. Cool. Good. That's wonderful. Well, is there anything more specifically you wanted to talk about that we haven't touched on related to last song?
Um, no, I think, I mean, it's funny, we've gone all over the place.
Yeah.
We took the song as a starting point, then we
Yeah.
went everywhere, which I think is kind of good. I mean, I suppose that's the whole ethos of your podcast, isn't
Yep.
it? To kind
It
of take
is.
a song as a starting point and see where that takes us. And I think we've done that, which is fantastic.
Agreed. Cool. Well, then let's take a quick break and we'll come right back to find out what you're working on next and what you have beyond your upcoming tour. Sound good?
Yep.
All right, cool. Everybody stay with us. Thanks. All right. And we're back with Sarah McQuaid. We listened to her song, last song, and we've been talking about all kinds of stuff for the past bit. And now I want to turn it back to you, to Sarah, to find out, what else do you have coming up besides, I mean, I know you have an extensive tour booked, from between the UK and Germany, Netherlands, and et cetera, and then into the US in 2024. But are you working on a new record? Is there something else creatively you're working on? I've seen in the past, I think you've done some, literary publishing maybe, or some writing in that space. Is there any other kind of endeavors you're working on?
Well, I'm working on writing some new songs, and I would like to make another album. What I'd really like to do, and this is going to be my next big project, is I've got this great big derelict garage or garage, depending on what country you're in, next to my house, and it's it's a big, huge space, and contrary to a lot of garages, it's got a high ceiling
Nice.
with a pitched roof and a skylight, and when I look around that space, I think it would make the most amazing recording studio. And I really love the idea of having a studio next to my house that I could just walk into and record, and use that as kind of working space to work on music as well.
Yep.
And have, especially if I could kind of, have PA set up and recording equipment set up so I could go in and play things like keyboard and electric guitar, and and hear them how they're going to sound when I'm playing them on stage, and really rehearse stuff, and also write new material using different instruments, and maybe, who knows, maybe even be able to do the odd podcast as well.
Yeah.
And I also started during lockdown, I started making some instructional videos, how to play, teaching people how to play.
Sure.
Stuff. Because one thing we haven't touched on, I use this tuning all the time on the guitar, both acoustic and electric guitars. I play all the time in the DADGAD tuning, the
Yep.
DAD-GAD instead of EAD-GBE, which is it's an alternative tuning. And I started making these how to play videos during lockdown, but it was really tough to try and get everybody in the house to be quiet.
Sure.
I think the cat made her way onto a couple of videos. So,
yeah, I'm
sure. I just have this dream of having my own recording space, but first thing I got to do is clear everything that's in there out, which is not easy, and then I'm going to have to do. It's going to need a new roof because the roof leaks, so that's going to necessitate some kind of a big crowdfunder project.
Sure.
So that's my next. So it may take a while to get it going, but I have been sort of gradually working on a few new songs, and I don't really like to push songwriting too hard, because what I found with my last two albums of new material, the Dig Any Deeper album and Walking into White, with both of those albums, because I'd been touring like crazy before making the albums. At the point when I actually booked the studio time, I had a whole load of half-written songs and nothing finished. And then I went, okay, right, got to finish songs. And I sat down, gave myself kind of a couple of months to sit down and finish all the songs. And with both of those albums, what I wound up with was a really coherent body of songs that worked really well together. In fact, I felt like they were almost kind of song cycles, both of those albums. And with Walking into White, what I did actually was I went out and played the album live for the first time of every gig for a while after I had recorded it, because I just loved the way all the songs worked together and kind of had a trajectory of their own.
Yeah.
So for that reason, even though I've got, all these voice memos of kind of
Yep.
handwritten songs and,
Sure.
and notes with lyrics. I haven't worked too hard on trying to make sure they're, on trying to round them out and flesh them out into finished songs, because I want to do that. I want to give them time to kind of gestate properly and then sit down and finish them all together, so I can write each song with reference to the others and think about how they're going to work together as an album.
Mm-hmm.
And gosh, it would be so much easier to do that if I had that recording space ready. So lots to think about and organize. But it's and I also want to do some co-writing as well. I did some. Well, I made a whole album of co-written songs that I co-wrote with Zoe, who we've alluded to previously.
Yep.
English kind of. She had a massive hit single years and years ago, which it was like a top 5 chart hit.
Oh wow!
Every time I mention it on stage in England, everybody goes, I'll remember it. Not so much in the States. I don't.
Sure.
She did tour in the US, I think, but not. She wasn't a massive hit there the way she was here. But anyway, I really love co-writing, and I've also co-written with a wonderful Irish singer-songwriter called Jerry Byrne, and I'm hoping to meet up with Jerry when I go over to Ireland on tour in April, and maybe sit down and do some co-writing with him as well, because I find there's something about co-writing with somebody else that it kind of, I don't know, it kind of becomes a sum is greater than the parts kind of thing.
Yep.
where ideas come to you both that would never have come to you separately.
Yep.
So I'm really excited about doing that as well. I've just recorded some backing vocals for a friend of mine's album, so
nice.
That's fun too, and I'll be really happy when that comes out. So yeah, all kinds of things in the pipeline, but mostly I'm just looking forward to getting out and touring again.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's great, and thank you for mentioning the DADGAD tuning. That's near and dear to many of my friends' hearts. They use that often. I stumbled upon a different alternate tuning that I just figured I'd share with you, that I found it kind of on accident, and it turned out to be really cool, even though it doesn't sound like it would be. But it was D G D G B E. It's drop D, and then I drop the A to G, and then the voicings of the chords that come out of that, to me, it was like, what is this? And it just kind of, that's what I love about playing in alternate tunings, is that also just sort of transforms, like, ooh, this is a whole new instrument now, and I have to kind of refigure out how some things are and find these new voicings of things, and it's really fun. But I just thought I'd share that one with you if you check it out.
And again, because you've got all those D's and G's, you're going to have a lot of what you have in DADGAD, which is the whole sympathetic resonance thing.
Yes.
With the DG, that there's tons of scope for all kinds of nice little accidental harmonics to come into the music there, and you get this big, rich sound. So I can imagine that must be lovely.
Yep. It's a lot of fun. But Sarah, thank you so much for coming along again to talk about the song Last Song and everything you've shared about what you're working on and what's coming up next and all the things you're involved in. It's been wonderful chatting with you. I wish you the best on your upcoming tour that you have booked, and look forward to catching you, somewhere in the United States when you come here next fall.
Thank you so much, Brett. It's been really lovely chatting to you, and I hope we meet in person one of these days.
Absolutely. Thank you, Sarah.
Three Crows Club presents B-Side Breakdown.
All right, and that wraps up another episode of the B-Side Breakdown. I want to thank Sarah McQuaid for coming on to talk about her song, Last Song. I also want to thank the A&B team for the music you're hearing in the background called Chin Ramp 2. That comes from the legendary skate video Search for Animal Chin. Thank you, Powell Peralta, for giving me permission to play this on this episode. I also want to thank Adam Coulong and Carrie Bozel for helping me put together the jingle you hear at the beginning and the end of this episode. Up next, we have Adam Woods from the band Oakview talking about the song Blossom. I'll give you a sample of that here in just a minute. Please subscribe to this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Stay safe out there, and we'll catch up on the next one. Thanks.